See if I can bring up my camera. First of all, I like that. Cool. Uh, webcam. Here we go. It's too big. We put it on. Okay. A little check in case anyone joins. All right. How do I put on my camera? I did it once before. I don't remember how to do it. Oh, maybe if I do this. Okay. Next. What you select will be immediately on screen. Good. That's what I want to be on screen. I think you're seeing mine. Let's change this. You do. Okay, cool. So you see what I see now. All right. So tonight we're talking about something called. I wish I could put my first off. I wish I could put my camera on. What I was trying to do. First place. Yeah. Webcam. Right. Huh. Well, looks like this one I'm not gonna have a camera. Whatever. That's okay. Save. Right, so I believe what you're seeing is my screen. Just make sure real quick. No, you don't. Ah, that's it. That's gotta be it. This has gotta be it. I figured it out. Hold on. Do this. Do that. Nope, maybe not. Really felt of it. Must be something else. Well, perhaps more importantly, I ought to screen. So, all right. Tell me, this should be on my screen, but it's not. Why? This is why. Here we go. Now we're in business. This is what I want to be showing you. There we go. Now I'm doing it live. Now we're doing it live. All right. Forget about the camera. That's not how it's gonna go. Full screen. And so tonight we're talking about Kangaroo Mother Care. It is a um, yep, I do have to do this. So Kangaroo Mother Care refers to a practice of taking care of a baby immediately after birth. So once a baby is born, there's an initial assessment that's done, and if something goes wrong with that baby, it's not breathing well, it had, you know, factors regarding the pregnancy that put it at higher risk, that baby will probably be admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit or the NICU. And a lot of things go on in the NICU, largely respiratory support. A lot of preterm infants have respiratory issues due to the immaturity of their lungs. And um, basically, immediately after birth, the baby needs to get stabilized. So it's actually taken away from mom and dad from the OR, goes to the NICU, gets stabilized. Then mom and dad can see the baby again, and that's usually over the course of a couple hours after birth. So mom has this amazing experience. She gives birth. Dad's usually in the room. Something goes a little awry, or maybe it's expected, maybe it's not. Baby goes to the NICU, and mom and dad don't see baby for a couple hours. You can imagine that that's crazy scary for mom and dad. But in the meantime, what's going on with the baby is, again, getting stabilized. So mother care actually started in Colombia in 1979 due to staff shortage and isolette storage. An isolette storage is an isolette is basically a little cabin for the baby. It's temperature controlled. The baby stays in there. It's kind of like an incubator. It's largely for preterm infants or small infants that cannot really support themselves yet. They're not ready for the transitioning of life. They're not able to do it on their own, so we need to support them. Now, it's a funny name, right? Kangaroo Mother Care. Where did that come from? And so in the same way that kangaroos keep their babies in their pouch to keep them warm, caregivers act as human incubators by keeping the baby skin to skin. So mom or dad, whoever the caregiver is, doesn't matter, can keep the baby close to them, skin to skin, and that's shown to have beneficial effects for the baby and the caregiver as well, actually, in terms of parent-child bonding. Um, for example, here's this third bullet. Studies have shown that kangaroo care helps support neonatal temperature, heart rate, helps to get them more restful sleep, and helps reduce periods of apnea, which is periods of no breathing. Right. So why is this important? Well, infants that are preterm with either low birth weight. First of all, I should have introduced the actual study I'm presenting tonight. Oh, I will in a second. Excuse me. Anyway, so why is this important anyway? Right. So infants that are preterm with low birth weight or that are small for gestational age account for 15% of all the neonates around the world. So every 15% of all newborns are either preterm or with low birth weight or small for gestational age. And this inherently puts them at higher risk for disease. And of this 15%, This 15% accounts for 70% of all neonatal deaths. So all 70% of all newborn deaths are in this subgroup of newborns. Currently, the World Health Organization recommends intermittent sessions of kangaroo care when the infant initially begins to stabilize. So once the baby goes into the NICU, starts stabilization, then they say, okay, mom or dad can go over and you can put the baby skin to skin. And then once the baby's completely stabilized, you can do continuous kangaroo care for essentially as long as you like. A meta-analysis, which is the pinnacle of medical science, it showed that 1,700 infants who received kangaroo care after stabilization had 40% lower mortality than those in incubators or radiant warmers, or aka isolettes. So if you're giving kangaroo care after stabilization, 40% less of those babies die as compared to babies being in incubators or radiant warmers. Something about being in mother or father's arms, skin to skin, helps these babies survive better. Additionally, these infants also have fewer infections, higher rates of exclusive breastfeeding, in other words, no need for formula supplements, and better weight gain than those who did not have kangaroo care. So this is what we're talking about tonight. It was published in May of this year in the New England Journal of Medicine. It's a non-blinded, multi-center, randomized controlled trial that compared immediate kangaroo mother care, which is the intervention, to kangaroo care given after stabilization to infants. And in both groups, the infants varied in weight from 1 kilogram to 1.8 kilograms. And if you know nothing about babies, this is really, really light preterm babies. And I do want to note that the standard of care now in the USA is to give kangaroo care after stabilization. So the picture that I painted earlier, baby's born, goes to the NICU, gets stabilized, then the parents can see. That was the control in this study. Whereas what they were testing was giving kangaroo care as soon as possible, really, after birth. Additionally, I wanted to note 2 other randomized control trials showed that skin-to-skin contact initiated soon after birth in infants with low birth weight resulted in earlier stabilization than the standard of care. So what did they do in the study? So there's a control and intervention group. The control babies were in a standard NICU for stabilization. They were without mom, and the moms provided breast milk. That's a very normal thing, and moms also had brief sessions of kangaroo care with the infant as the infant began to stabilize. That is the normal protocol. That's what's widely done across the U.S. in NICUs. The intervention group, so what they did was created what they called mother NICUs, where they created a space with a bed for mom and a reclining chair for mom, so that mom and the infant really never left each other's sides. So how they did this was actually done in 5 centers. This was done in the Eastern world, India, Africa, and a couple other countries. Of the 5 centers, 2 of them actually created a separate mother NICU from their control NICU. So their regular NICU that they had operating on a day-to-day, that was their control, and they created a separate structure that was their mother NICU with these types of rooms with bed for mom and reclining chair. The 3 other centers split their NICU down the middle. So one half was the control side and the other half was the mother NICU. In the mother NICU, all of the care of the mom and the infant, either provided by the neonatologist or from the OB, was provided while giving kangaroo care. So mom and baby were skin to skin, and the neonatologist is doing the exam, the OB is doing the exam, taking care of mom and baby. Additionally, the infants in the intervention group were secured to mom's chest with a binder, so they're in almost like a sling. So the baby is chest to chest with mom and making sure that the baby can breathe fine. Kangaroo mother care was only interrupted by procedures, medical care, or routine mother activities. So that was the intervention group versus the control group and how they looked. Once the babies in both of the groups were deemed stable for 24 hours, they were then transferred to the kangaroo care ward, where kangaroo mother care was provided for all the infants continuously until discharge. So what then is the difference, right? So the difference in the 2 groups is the time to initiate kangaroo mother care. And the mean time for skin-to-skin intervention, for skin-to-skin in the intervention group was 1.3 hours versus 53.6 hours in the control group. So in the standard of care, there was 1,400 mothers in this study, and in each arm of the study, excuse me. And in the control group, it took on average 53 hours, 53.6 hours, to transition to skin care for mom and baby. Whereas in the intervention group, with immediate skin to skin with mom and baby, that was only done after 1.3 hours. And there's a pretty stark difference in the times of skin to skin care between those two groups. So the question is, well, what happened? A couple things to note. The median NICU stay for both groups was 6.4 days. The median duration of skin-to-skin contact for the intervention group was 16.9 hours, and for the control group was 1.5 hours. The primary outcomes were mortality from the time of enrollment to 28 days, as well as mortality from the time of enrollment to 72 hours. And so what they showed was that there was significantly reduced mortality within 28 days for the intervention group compared to the control group. So there was 12% mortality in the intervention group versus 15.7% mortality in the control group, with a p-value of 0.001, which is very significant. The number needed to treat was 27, which means you needed to treat 27 babies with early skin-to-skin contact with a caregiver to prevent one death. It kind of sounds like, oh, is this much to do about nothing? Well, for a reference, the number needed to treat for a statin, which is a cholesterol-lowering medication, number needed to treat is 163 people. So a doctor needs to treat 163 people to prevent one death in 1 year when giving a statin. So that kind of gives you a point of reference for how efficacious this actually is. Additionally, there was no significant reduction in mortality within 72 hours. It was 4.6% in the intervention group versus 5.8% mortality in the control group with a p-value of 0.09. Also, the risk of death was lower in the intervention group as hours of skin-to-skin contact increased, and they subcategorized as less than 10 hours, 10 to 20 hours, or greater than 20 hours per day of skin-to-skin contact, and they showed that as skin-to-skin contact time increased, risk of death decreased. The secondary outcomes also showed that there were reduced rates of hypothermia and sepsis in the intervention group, so the group getting early kangaroo mother care. So what, in summary, did we learn? Immediate kangaroo mother care for infants with weights 1 kilogram to 1.8 kilograms improved neonatal survival by 25% compared to the control groups. And the control group, again, is the current standard of care. This method may actually also have additional benefits, such as promoting infant microbiome colonization from being in close contact with mom, as well as a higher likelihood to receive early breastfeeds from mom. And a couple limitations of the study. So a couple important things is the practicality of how things were performed or could be performed in the U.S. Remember I said that this was performed in the East. So the big caveat to this study is that when it's done in the East, there's not as many resources available, right? Because this is how this technique originated in Colombia. There weren't nurses around. There weren't isolettes around. So they said, hey, mom, hold your baby close, keep it warm. And it turned out to be a good intervention. But that's how it originated, and that's what's going on also in this study. There were limited resources to the centers in this study. So, for example, if there was these babies in the U.S., in the U.S., you can see the second bullet here. What if a baby needs a UVC or a UAC, right? An umbilical vein catheter or umbilical artery catheter, which means you put a tube through the umbilical cord, the vessels in the cord, and they end up being a central line. These are sterile procedures, number one. There's high risk of infection. So putting a baby, additionally, there could be mechanical problems if there is mother to baby skin to skin with these devices in place. And so it was a bigger problem with an umbilical artery catheter because the arteries are obviously pressurized. And there was actually a study that showed that UVCs with skin to skin is actually not that bad. It was a 2017 paper that studied kangaroo mother care in infants with UVCs and showed the incidence of mechanical problems is fairly low. The level of catheter-related infections is similar to that of units where kangaroo mother care is uncommon. So it says that in babies with UVCs, kangaroo mother care is not a horrible thing. There's not many complications to it. However, couldn't find much on UACs and skin-to-skin contact or kangaroo mother care. And the last thing I wanted to say was that another limitation of the study was that they showed increased skin-to-skin time conferred decreased risk of death. However, this could be confounded by medical issues in some of the infants that preclude prolonged skin-to-skin time. So, in other words, if a baby that has, say, less than 10 hours a day of skin-to-skin time, maybe they needed more medical attention, and that's why they didn't have as much skin-to-skin time. And they probably, as a result of that medical attention, have a higher mortality because they probably have something else going on. So that's something to consider as one of their secondary outcomes. But yeah, that was kangaroo mother care. It's an interesting thing. I didn't know about it before yesterday when I read this paper. And it seems pretty simple, right? Evolutionarily, it's like babies were born, and what did the mom do? She probably hugged it, right? Right at the time of birth, held it close to her. So there's probably some sort of evolutionary component to mother-child bonding, father-child bonding, with holding it close at an early age, as well as the increased survival at an early age when this type of method is employed. Early on, we see that it's more efficacious early on than if you wait longer. So that's an interesting thing. That is all I had for today. I went 20 minutes, but I think the first 10 minutes was me trying to mess around with this thing. So that's what I got. I hope to see you soon. I haven't done many of these as I would have wanted to lately. I've been busy trying to figure out to study well, sleep enough, eat well, exercise while starting rotations, while also trying to do well on my rotations. There's an interesting transition, but we're getting there. Talk to you soon. So long.